Good evening, my butterflies. Tonight is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and in the spirit of new beginnings and the harvest season, I have been reflecting on what I want out of my life and what I am meant to do with my talents. So after spending some time away from the world, I'm turning over a new leaf, stepping out of my chrysalis, if you will. I rebranded the channel 2 years ago, and when picking a mascot/theme for my Sona, I went with butterflies. I talked about the whole design process on stream before, but I don't think I actually explained why I chose butterflies, when I could have gone with the much more appropriate and certainly more metal Death's Head hawk moth, an insect that feeds on deadly nightshade and the mascot for one of my favorite horror films. But being a native species of Asia and the Middle East, despite my love for the creature, I decided against it. Now, no specific species represents the channel, even though I do have an affinity towards the eastern tiger swallowtail. But generally, butterflies as a whole are a fascinating study, specifically from a mythology and folklore standpoint. We'll start with their name. Most people don't even bat an eye at the name butterfly, and they should. Why do we call these dainty nectar drinkers a name relating to a dairy product? Well, that wasn't always their name. Since butterflies live all over the world, it's only natural that they have different names from all over the world. In ancient Greece, they were referred to as Psyche, meaning soul, which many of you may recognize the name from the famous myth of Eros and Psyche. In Russia, they were called Babushka, or Little Soul, and the French to this day still call them papillons, which apparently is what they also called their parking tickets? While I couldn't find a meaning specifically for the French word papillon, it is interesting to note that both the Russian and the ancient Greeks referred to the butterfly as a soul, or a little soul. But what specifically caught my interest was the old German name for butterflies. I could find at least 3. Butterlicker, or Butterlicker, Molkendieb, Way Thief, and Milchdieb, Milk Thief. This is an interesting nod to old folktale and instances of butterflies flying around dairy barns and drinking the whey off the top of fresh milk. While I couldn't find any documented instances of this happening, aside from a reference in one article and this documentary that shows moths drinking cream in the night, it also brings up the fact that butterflies and moths used to be called the same thing. I am not sure when they split, but there is evidence that the word moth came from an Old English word meaning maggot, but admittedly, etymology is not my strong suit. The modern word for the German butterfly is Schmetterling, and when I looked up the etymology of this word, it apparently comes from the Saxon word Schmetter, which calls back to the old tales of witches taking the form of butterflies, also including moths, to enter people's homes at night to steal the cream or the souls of sick people. Now that is a nifty bit of lore. Witches disguising themselves as creatures of the night is nothing new in folklore. Black cats were their familiars, bats were the servants of Satan, and owls would bring bad luck to those who heard them call 3 times. I could talk about how nocturnal animals have been shafted by humans for hours, but we are here for the butterflies. Differentiating between moths and butterflies in history would be tricky with them having the same name for decades, but unfortunately, it is easy to tell who is who by whom has the positive attributes versus the negatives. Butterflies from most mythos are surprisingly consistent. From Greek, Egyptian, African, and even Irish folklore, butterflies were seen and regarded as the actual souls of people waiting to enter the afterlife and should be respected. This belief probably comes from the death and rebirth cycle they go through in their metamorphosis, from caterpillar to pupa to chrysalis to butterfly. One interesting note I found in Aztec beliefs that monarch butterflies were the farriers of souls to and from the spirit world during their yearly migrations to the Mexican mountains in November, which is also the same time as the Dia de los Muertos celebrations, leading to the belief that the monarchs were their ancestors returning for a visit. Ay, mariposas, no se aguanten más. That is beautiful. Why isn't this talked about more? A monumental holiday coinciding with the seasonal migrations of animals shows just how much the land affects the culture and is necessary for the true meaning of the celebration. I may be reaching here, but it is entirely possible that the whole history of Dia de los Muertos was created due to the monarch's yearly return to the area. This goes to show just how connected we are to the animals, the weather, the stars, our planet, everything. But also, we are connected to each other by our mutual need for everything to have meaning and for our love of stories. I hope you enjoyed my little ramble about butterflies. If you know any specific folk tales or stories in mythology regarding butterflies and moths, let me know in the comments. All the sources for my research will be in the description for anyone to check out for themselves. Happy Rosh Hashanah, happy harvest. Thank you and good night.